Nearly 9,000 new COVID-19 cases have been confirmed among children in Florida. That is 15 days into the school year. This comes as universities begin their courses, and certainly concerns about the infection rates at universities, especially given what we have seen across the country. Let's bring in Miami Mayor Francis Suarez. Mayor, it's great to have you on. Good to talk to you. Let's start by what you're seeing at schools right now, because you're just coming out of what has been a really straining few months, given the uptick that you saw in the virus. You're starting to level off with positivity rates within the state of Florida coming down as well. But how are you weighing the risks of these school openings, especially given how high these numbers are just 2 weeks into the school year?
One of the things that we've seen over the course of this virus is that it takes a lot of work to get the numbers down, and they quickly increase. And so sometimes I feel like our residents and particularly younger students, they lose respect for just how infectious this disease is and how efficient it is at spreading. And I think that's what happens anytime that there is a new event, right? Whether it's the beginning of school, whether it's taking off one of the mitigation factors. On Monday, the county has decided that they're going to allow for indoor dining at a 50% rule. So we have seen, the number of new cases diminish from a high point of 3,500 to now we're somewhere in the 700 to 500 range. So that's a 1/7, which is great news. But whenever you see a big population come online, whether like students, it's a huge concern.
We've seen tension between the policy at the state level, with the governor initially ordering schools to reopen, and then some of these districts pushing back. As you look at where these new cases within schools stand, what will it take for you to maybe pause and say, okay, maybe we need to close these schools back up because these infection rates are just too high? What's the level you're looking at?
We have three things that we're looking at. One of them, of course, is hospitalizations. And thankfully, our hospitalizations went from a high of 2,300 COVID cases countywide, and now we're under 1,000. So that's a big a drop. And certainly that's a number you can't fudge. There's no way, people often talk about the statistics. Do we have the right numbers? Do we have the adequate number of testing? Once people become hospitalized, that's a number that you can't sort of disagree with. The other thing that we're looking at is high school students and elementary school students. The school year begins on Monday, and it is a virtual school year. So thankfully, that's a huge school system with 400,000 teachers and students. And if those students were going in person, it would be very difficult for me to imagine a scenario under which you would not have a potential super spreader event. The third thing that we're looking at, of course, is colleges and universities. And that's a worry, because there's a tendency whenever, the college-age students maybe are not going to follow the rules like mask in public, which is one of the big reasons why I think our numbers have plummeted. We've been vigorous on enforcement of mask in public. And we've also been vigorous on the enforcement of, our curfew and the no indoor dining. And that's why I think the numbers have come down so much.
Yeah, and there's got to be a concern, especially with the University of Miami football season starting again. You've had these big gatherings among college students across the country that have been super spreader events. Let me shift my attention to what's happening in the presidential race. We've got the Republican National Convention, night 4 today. President Trump will be making the case for 4 more years. You're a Republican yourself, and yet you have said that the Republican Party needs to evolve, particularly on issues like immigration as well as climate change. What do you make of the message that we have seen coming out of the party over the last 4 days?
I think they're trying to evolve. I don't know how effective they've been, but I think they're making efforts. Obviously, you have, a lieutenant governor who's a female Cuban American, and Janet Nunez, who spoke at the convention. So I think they're making some efforts to not be seen as an anti-immigration party, even though a lot of the rhetoric for the last few years has been hostile to immigrants. But I think, what makes this country great, and I'm the product of 2 immigrant parents, a father and mother. What makes this country great is the fact that we are all a country of immigrants. We have to understand and accept that and embrace that, and understand that diversity, particularly in areas like cities like Miami, is a strength. It's not a weakness. And that's something that I think it shouldn't be an issue that the Republican Party cedes. And I think they've done that, unfortunately, over the last few years. And frankly, it's that environment, which, as we see with the hurricane that is badly affecting the Texas and Louisiana area. And we see that happening in Miami, more frequent hurricanes, obviously because of, in part, global warming. We really have to do a better job of messaging on those issues.
Yeah, let's talk about that issue of climate change. You are not only the mayor of a city that has seen the direct impact of climate change with rising water, stronger storms, but you're also part of an international commission that addresses climate change. So how do you, as a Republican who is very focused in on this issue, sort of square that with where the party stands right now and not fully embracing the issue of climate change?
As a Republican, mayor, I consider myself a leader. And so I think for me, you don't always necessarily have to toe the line. I think you're expected to do and say what you believe in and what you see, by the way, because for us, climate change is not an abstract issue. It's very, very real, right? We see, like you said, dry day flooding. We see the more intense than usual annual rainfall. We see the ever increasing number and intensity of hurricanes. So those are things that we live with day in and day out. And if we want to be around for my children and for my grandchildren, we have to address this. So as you said, I've been blessed to be chair of the Environment Committee for the U.S. Conference of Mayors on a global commission on adaptation. I brought the city into the C40, and committing to the Paris Climate Agreement, because we have to not only mitigate and make sure that we're not doing anything to further pollute our environment and further cause global warming, but we also have to find innovative ways to reverse the effects of global warming and engineer ways to balance out Mother Nature so that we are in a good homeostasis as a world and are not contributing in any way to a negative climatic experience for ourselves and for future generations.
Okay, Mayor Francis Suarez, always good to talk to you, the Miami mayor joining us there.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.